this year, I made a video breaking down my then 18-car car sharing fleet, and I broke down how much this fleet earns and some of the different ins and outs of the financials of that business. Now, since recording that video over the summer, my fleet is relatively unchanged. It still consists of a lot of Mazdas, Hyundais, Fords, and Toyotas, but rather than being 18 vehicles, which is what it was over the summer, it's now at 22, which consists of 19 Turo cars, 1 get-around car, and 2 RVs. If you haven't checked out that video and you're interested in seeing a little bit behind the scenes of the financials of my car sharing fleet, I will include a link to that video down in the description below. And to piggyback off of that same video that I made earlier this year, in this video, rather than focusing on which cars I'm buying and how much I'm making, I instead want to focus on how I run my Turo fleet and some of the key contributing factors that has allowed for me to grow and scale my car sharing fleet successfully over the last 5 years. But before we dive into that, I do want to let you guys know that my course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, is currently on sale for the holidays until December 31st. And if you use the code Christmas200, you can get $200 off of that purchase. In the Car Sharing Masterclass, we go over everything you need to know about starting and scaling a car sharing fleet with the same business model that I use. And you'll get access to all current and future iterations of the course, our private Discord, as well as monthly Zoom calls, which will be beginning in 2023. Again, you can use the code Christmas200 to get your holiday discount, and the link to the course is down in the description below. Now, with that out of the way, in today's video, I want to break down the 5 crucial aspects of my car sharing fleet that I think have been integral to the success of my fleet as a whole. I'm going to talk about how I've implemented these things, how you can implement them, and how they made a difference in my own fleet. And the first thing I want to talk about today is the types of cars that I buy. This is something that I've talked about on my channel forever, and it's something that has remained relatively unchanged over the last 5 years. And that is the fact that I buy low-end economy and mid-tier economy cars. Cars that are priced well below $10,000, but typically the cars that I buy are around $6,000. And as of right now, my focus is on buying a lot of Hyundais, Mazdas, Toyotas, and I also throw in some Fords as well. All of the cars that I purchase, I would consider to be economical cars. They are cars for people that are putting their budget as the priority rather than the luxuries of owning a more modern, newer car. I rent to a ton of locals, but over the years, I have seen quite the increase in people who are traveling to the Dallas area and rent my cars while they're in town. Now, there are a handful of different reasons as to why I choose to buy these types of cars for my fleet and why I think I've found so much success with it. Number one is the fact that these cars are cheap. All 22 of my vehicles, my RV and my camper van included, are paid for in cash. I owe no money on any of them. This has allowed for our profit margin to be increased, but it's also allowed for our business to remain extremely flexible. There is a lot of comfort in knowing that our business is flexible and lean enough to absorb slow periods of time without having to adjust our operations too much because of the fact that we keep our overhead low and our profit margin is high because we don't have any car payments. Not only that, but the cars that we buy are just typically lower cost compared to some newer cars out there. Our tires are cheaper, our insurance is cheaper, and surprisingly enough, our maintenance is pretty cheap as well. People tend to think that if you buy older cars, it's going to be accompanied by a higher maintenance cost. And this can of course be true depending on which cars you buy. But if you're strategic with the types of cars that you buy, maintenance is pretty similar. We prioritize buying older, cheaper, but reliable cars, which is why we are very, very picky with the cars that we choose. At this point, we have dozens of different makes and models blacklisted from our fleet. Buying the right cars for your Turo fleet is one of the most important pieces of your car sharing puzzle, and you need to make sure that you're choosing the right cars that will remain utilized and that will of course make you money. Another factor that has been huge to HP&I's success on Turo has been the way in which we store and maintain our vehicles. You see, I would describe HP&I's Turo operation as a hybrid operation. We rent a commercial lot where we'll store and stage our cars in between rentals, and this is where guests will pick up the key and pick up the car, but we maintain and clean all of our cars from our house. This has allowed for us to keep our operations as low as possible because we do all of the things that we need to do from our house, which is free. And the commercial lot that we rent is pretty cheap, so it's extremely cost effective. Being able to work from both an affordable commercial lot as well as our personal residence has allowed for HP&I to save a ton of money and to reinvest a lot of that money back into our business, which has been great. But this is a strategy that we are quickly growing out of, and we probably are going to need to get a commercial space sooner than later, and that is absolutely on the to-do list for 2023. Now, one thing that I absolutely do not recommend that anybody does is to do key exchanges from your personal residence. I think it is extremely important to have an off-site location where guests can go and they can pick up the car from there. There are a few reasons why I believe this. Number one is safety reasons. I do not want guests to know where I live, and I think it's incredibly important for your safety to keep that part of your life private from the guests that rent your cars. Number two is the fact that your neighbors don't want to see strange people coming in and out of the neighborhood, picking up cars. You want to make sure that you're keeping your business laying low, and if you have people coming and going at all hours of the day, it becomes intrusive very quickly. And the third reason is, in most cases, you can't run a commercial business like a rental car agency from your house, and in most cases, the city does view your Turo fleet as a commercial rental car business. And for the sake of remaining out of the city's radar, I think it's best to do this type of thing from a commercial lot. I've talked about where you can find these lots in a variety of different videos, so if you want to check those out, I will include a link down in the description below to one of the playlists. The third factor, and I would say the most important one that has absolutely been a key factor in our success on Turo, has been remote key exchanges. This is something that is so important. Now, for those of you who don't know what remote key exchanges are, whenever a guest rents a car on Turo, they have to get the key for the car somehow. Some Turo hosts will go and meet the guest in person and physically hand them the key and verify their identity. Other hosts, like myself, opt for the remote key exchange process. This is where the guest will send their license information digitally over the Turo app, and then whenever the guest gets to the car, you will simply provide them specific instructions on how they can go about getting the key and getting the car. If you're somebody who's wanting to grow and scale Turo fleet, I personally think that remote key exchanges are a must. The way that we will do this is we will simply clean and check in cars at our house before the guest gets to the vehicle. We'll then drive the car down to our commercial lot where we'll stage it for the guest. We'll set up the key, set up the lockbox, make sure everything's ready to go. And then once the guest has been verified and once it becomes time for the rental, we'll send them all of the instructions in great detail. I've been running a Turo fleet for over 5 years. I have 3,100 trips on the Turo platform, and I've been doing remote key exchanges for every single rental. In fact, I have never met a guest in person, and I probably never will. The reason why remote key exchanges are so important is because of the fact that if you're meeting every single guest in person, your entire day is revolved around when these guests pick up cars. They could be picking up cars very, very early in the morning, in the afternoon, very late at night. Regardless of the time, you are revolving your entire day around when these guests pick up cars. Not only is that a huge inconvenience in itself, but it's also limiting your availability to explore and do other things. And it also limits the ability for you to scale up your fleet. If I was meeting every single guest in person, it would be impossible for me to do YouTube. It would be impossible for me to work a consulting job, and it would be very, very difficult to grow my fleet past 20 cars. Not to mention the fact that guests are late all of the time, which means that I would be sitting around at my parking lot for hours on end, waiting for guests to return and pick up my cars. If you want to grow and scale your income, then efficiency is the name of the game. And if you are meeting every single guest in person, that's just simply not efficient. Your time is simply more valuable than that, so to avoid this headache altogether, just do remote key exchanges. It is a game changer. On the same topic of remote key exchanges is CarSync. Now, CarSync is an online platform that allows for you to automate many different aspects of your car sharing business. I've said this once, I will say it 100 times over. If you are a car sharing host, regardless of your fleet size, you must sign up for CarSync. CarSync is free as of now. There's rumors that they're going to start charging at some time in the future, but to be honest, I would pay hundreds of dollars per month for CarSync. I think that it is that big of a value add. With CarSync, you can automate a ton of different aspects of your business. We automate our messages and our tolls. How it works with tolls specifically is we have our toll tags associated with our CarSync account, and whenever tolls are accumulated from a rental, CarSync will actually total all of the toll charges together. They will then assign these tolls to the right guest, and then whenever it comes to requesting reimbursement for these tolls, I just simply go into the app and I request. It is super, super easy, and it takes a task that used to take me hours every single week, and it only takes a few minutes a day. But the biggest benefit of CarSync is definitely the automated messages. You can send out automated messages for different stages of the rental process. So we have a message that goes out with an FAQ right whenever the car is booked. We have a message that goes out 24 hours before the car is picked up. We have a message goes out right before the rental. We have a message that goes out halfway through the rental. And we have a message that goes out at the end of the rental asking for a 5-star review. All of this goes out automatically, and there's nothing that I have to do or think about in order to make it happen. CarSync will save you so much time, so much mental capacity, because you'll no longer have to physically type out the messages, you'll no longer have to copy and paste the messages, you'll no longer have to remember who needs a message sent and when. It really does take a lot of the questions out of the equation, and it just handles it for you. It is an amazing tool. I could not recommend it more. And last but not least is definitely a more controversial one in the world of car sharing, and that is delivery. HP and I do not offer delivery on any of our cars ever. No exceptions. Now, if you're somebody that lives really close to an airport, then delivery could make sense for you. But I would argue that for most people and in most situations, delivery just doesn't make sense. And for me, I have absolutely found this to be the case. I live 45 minutes to the closest airport, which means that if I was to deliver cars, I would have to account for 90 minutes of my time just to go deliver one car. Not to mention the logistics and the planning that goes into offering delivery. It just isn't worth it. I really value my time, and I think that a lot of people undervalue theirs. And I think it's really easy to get stuck in this trap of delivering cars because you feel as though you either A, won't get reservations without delivery, or option B, you think that it's worth it. And for some people, and in some cases it is, but I think in many other cases it isn't. I don't want to give the blanket statement that I don't think anybody should ever offer delivery, but I think that you should be very strategic on how you offer it, and you should constantly be auditing your delivery system to make sure that it's still worth it for you. I have found that in my case, it absolutely is not worth it, and because of that, I would rather have a guest cancel a trip and rebook with a different host than have me deliver the car myself. So for every single guest that books one of my cars, they actually either have to get a family member, a friend, or an Uber to drop them off at my location, because I will not be bringing the car to them. Now, these are the 5 factors that I have found to be incredibly important in growing and scaling my own car sharing fleet. Now, keep in mind, I've grown my fleet over the years with my husband HP. I've also done it in conjunction with growing this YouTube channel, growing my course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, and also working a part-time job in consulting. Keeping my car sharing fleet semi-passive, lean, and efficient has been my #1 priority. And I think that all of these different tips and tricks that I've talked about in this video have allowed for me to do this quite well. And I plan on using these exact same strategies and techniques to help me grow my fleet to 30 cars this coming year. But like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it. So make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I'll see you guys in the next video.